My apartment always felt like a little haven. Soft lights, the smell of vanilla in the air, everything just the way I liked it. Romantic, cozy, intimate. Daniel used to say it felt like home. But every time I brought up the idea of making it our home, he'd smile vaguely, change the subject, or suddenly remember something urgent. He was sweet, no doubt about it. He'd pull me close, kiss the top of my head, and tell me how lucky he was. But commitment? That word seemed to vanish into the walls. And even though it hurt, I kept holding on to the way he touched me, the way he made me laugh, the way I didn't feel so alone with him next to me in bed. My friends kept asking questions I didn't want to answer. Is he serious about you? Where is this going? And honestly, I didn't know. I told myself he just needed time. Not every man moves fast, right? I believe that real love wasn't always loud. It was in the little things. Like the way he brought me flowers after my awful day at work. Or the way he'd wrap me in his arms on lazy Sundays, as if the world outside didn't exist. And when he said, "I missed you," it felt real. God, I wanted it to be real. But at night, when the silence stretched between us, I could feel the weight of everything unsaid. I'd stare at the ceiling, wondering if I was imagining the distance or just refusing to see it. Part of me was still hopeful, still clinging to the possibility that he'd wake up one morning and say, "Let's do this. Let's build something together." I needed to believe that, because if I didn't, what was I even doing? And then, just when I thought I'd heard it all, a message popped up on my phone. From someone I hadn't thought about in years. It was Luna. Her name lit up my screen like a ghost from another life. My heart did that weird stutter step thing, half panic, half nostalgia. I hadn't seen her in 5, 6 years? Maybe more. We used to be inseparable, the kind of best friends who finished each other's sentences and made ridiculous promises about being old ladies on a beach someday. Life happened, as it always does. Jobs, moves, relationships. Silence. I stared at the message for a long time before opening it. Just seeing her name brought back a flood of memories I didn't know I'd been storing away. "Clara, I don't even know where to start. But I miss you. Can we talk?" That was all it said. No drama, no long explanations. Just honest, simple. And it cracked something open in me. I sat there holding my phone like it was a piece of her. The timing was strange. I'd been feeling so adrift lately, questioning everything about Daniel, about my choices, about where I was headed. And now Luna, my Luna, was reaching out, as if the universe knew I needed someone who remembered who I used to be. Before all of this, before him. I didn't hesitate. I typed back, "Yes, please." When and where? And just like that, my heart felt a little lighter. A part of me I'd forgotten suddenly stirred awake. Maybe it was foolish to think that a message could change anything. But in that moment, I needed to believe that reconnection was possible, that the past didn't always have to stay buried. Maybe Luna coming back into my life was the start of something I didn't even know I needed. Or maybe it was the beginning of something far more complicated than I could imagine. The days that followed were a blur of distraction. I kept thinking about Luna, about seeing her again, hearing her laugh, slipping back into the comfort of our old rhythm. But every time I tried to tell Daniel about her message, something stopped me. Maybe it was the way he barely listened when I talked lately, his attention always somewhere else. Or maybe I was just afraid. Afraid he wouldn't care. Afraid his indifference would say more than his words ever could. I didn't want to admit how often I felt like I was talking to a shadow. I started to notice things I hadn't let myself see before. The way he avoided eye contact when I brought up the future. The forced smile when I mentioned us taking a trip together. The way his phone never left his side anymore. I told myself not to jump to conclusions, but deep down, something didn't sit right. I was no longer sure if I was in love with the man in front of me, or with the idea of what we could be, and that difference was starting to feel enormous. Dangerous, even. The night before meeting Luna, I stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. I touched up my lipstick, smoothed down my blouse, and just stared at myself. There was something in my eyes I hadn't seen in a while. Curiosity, maybe? A flicker of who I used to be. I didn't know what seeing Luna again would bring, or what stories she'd come carrying. But a part of me, small but growing, was starting to wonder if the questions I had about Daniel weren't the ones I needed to be asking after all. The cafe was small, tucked away on a quiet street, just like the ones Luna and I used to love back in college. I got there early, hands wrapped around a too-hot mug, trying to slow the nervous drumbeat in my chest. And then she walked in. Same spark in her eyes, same wild curls, same way of smiling like the world was just a little less heavy when she was around. For a second, time folded in on itself. We were 20 again, laughing in the rain, dreaming out loud, invincible. And then she hugged me, and everything we hadn't said melted away. We talked like no time had passed. Her laugh still had that ripple effect. One giggle from her and I couldn't stop grinning. We swapped stories, the good and the messy. I told her about my job, my apartment, the books I pretended to finish. She told me about moving back to the city, the yoga studio she opened, how life had thrown her a few curveballs. We didn't tiptoe around the silence that had separated us. Instead, we named it, forgave it, let it go. It felt healing, like slipping back into a sweater you hadn't worn in years. But that still somehow fit perfectly. There was something grounding about being with her again. Like she remembered a version of me I hadn't seen in a long time. Someone bolder, less apologetic. I didn't realize how much I missed being known, not just for who I'd become, but for who I was before the world softened my edges. And just when I started to think this might become a new rhythm, a second chance for something good, Luna leaned in, eyes glowing, and said, "I have to tell you something. I'm getting married," she said, almost whispering it like a secret too big for the room. My jaw dropped. Then I laughed, because of course she was. Luna had always been the kind of woman who believed in grand, cinematic love. She leaned into it the way most people lean into gravity. "His name is Tomas. He's everything," she said, her whole face lighting up like a string of fairy lights. "Kind, steady, makes me laugh until I cry. The kind of man who makes you believe in all the stuff we used to roll our eyes at." And I believed her. Or at least I wanted to. She pulled out her phone and showed me pictures. Smiling selfies, beach sunsets, a golden retriever with a bow tie. I smiled and nodded and told her how happy I was, and I meant it. Or most of me did. The other part, that quiet voice buried deep inside, wondered if I was ever going to get my own fairy tale. But I pushed it down. This was Luna's moment, and I wasn't about to cast a shadow over it. She reached across the table, her hand warm on mine. "I want you there, at the wedding. I need my best friend by my side." I said yes before I could even blink. Not because I was ready for a room full of strangers, or because I thought I could watch someone else get their happy ending without flinching, but because I needed this. I needed to believe in new beginnings. I needed to believe that people could drift apart and still find their way back to something that felt like home. For the first time in a long time, something real was blooming inside me. And I wanted to tell her everything. About Daniel, about the confusion, the waiting. But just as I opened my mouth, she cut in with another dreamy sigh. "You won't believe how he proposed." She launched into the story like a teenager in love. Wide-eyed, glowing, completely swept away. We were in Lisbon on this little rooftop with fado music playing in the background. I thought we were just watching the sunset, but then he pulled out this tiny velvet box. Her voice trailed off, dreamy and distant, like she was still there on that rooftop. I smiled, nodding at the right parts, but inside, something shifted. I was happy for her, truly. But there was a quiet ache curling around my ribs, the kind that makes you wonder what you've been waiting for, and why. I tried again to bring up Daniel. "There's someone I've been seeing too, actually," I began, careful with my words, not even sure what I wanted to say. That we were serious? That we weren't? That I didn't know what we were? But before I could go further, she cut in again, eyes sparkling. "You have to meet Tomas. He's everything I ever hoped for, and somehow more. You're going to love him, Clara." I swallowed my thoughts. There wasn't space for my uncertainty in her fairy tale, and maybe that was okay. Maybe this moment was hers to own. Still, as we hugged goodbye and promised not to lose each other again, I felt something tighten inside me. I couldn't name it then, but it felt like I was standing on the edge of something I couldn't quite see yet. A feeling that something was coming, something that would change everything. And I had no idea how right I was. I stood in front of the mirror, smoothing the soft satin of my dress, trying to quiet the nerves fluttering in my stomach. Not sadness, just that charged energy weddings always bring. Everyone around you brimming with hope and champagne and impossible expectations. I took a deep breath, reminding myself this was about Luna, my friend, my oldest friend, and I was here to celebrate her happiness. I added one last swipe of lipstick, forced a smile at my reflection, and told myself I could handle this. The venue looked like something out of a dream. White roses everywhere, twinkling lights strung above like stardust, soft music floating through the air. It was beautiful, almost painfully so. People laughed around me, hugged, toasted, clinked glasses, and I smiled, nodded, made small talk. But somewhere in the back of my mind, something felt off. Not in the room, not in the decor, inside me, like a quiet knock on a door I wasn't ready to open yet. And then it happened. He stepped forward. The groom. Tall, handsome, confident, wearing his cologne. Daniel's cologne. My stomach dropped. The room tilted. No, it couldn't be. But it was. It was him. Daniel. Standing at the altar, smiling like the sun had never gone out, waiting to marry her. Luna. My best friend. My past. My present. And now, somehow, my betrayal. I couldn't breathe. I mean, literally, I forgot how. My lungs locked up, my knees threatened to give. It was like my body had gone underwater and forgot how to swim. I turned away quickly, pretending to look for something in my clutch, praying no one had noticed the color drain from my face. How? How was this even possible? All the nights we spent together, the mornings, his hands on my skin, his whispers in the dark. Was it all a lie? Did he ever plan to tell me? Or was I just a placeholder while he built this other life? I slipped away from the crowd, past the smiling faces and the flutes of champagne, until I found an empty hallway. My hands shook as I leaned against the wall, trying to steady the roar inside my head. My heart was breaking in real time, and no one else in the world knew it. Flashbacks came like punches, him tracing lazy circles on my back, saying he wasn't ready for something serious, the way he kissed me goodbye just a few days ago. And now he was here, dressed in a tux, promising forever to someone else. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run back in there and stop everything, to tear the veil from this illusion and show the world who he really was. But I didn't move. I just stood there, frozen, the betrayal swallowing me whole. I thought of Luna's face, how happy she'd looked, how certain. And I thought of mine, lost, stupid, silent. The pain curled into something sharper than grief, something colder. I didn't know it then, but a seed had just been planted. A quiet vow. They would both regret this. I stayed hidden long enough to hear the music shift, the vows, the soft murmur of joy, the clapping. It was like listening to someone else's dream come true while your own world collapsed behind a curtain. I felt like a ghost, a phantom hovering just outside the light, holding 1,000 unsaid words in my throat. What would I even say? "Hey, Luna, congrats. By the way, I've been sleeping with your fiancé." I imagined her face, the disbelief, the betrayal. And suddenly, I wasn't sure who I was more furious with, him or myself. Because I should have seen it. The distance, the deflection, the careful way he danced around real conversations. I had pieced together a version of him that fit my hope, not my reality. And now here I was, holding the shattered proof of everything I refused to see. But there was no time for guilt. Not anymore. Something else had started stirring in me. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was awake. Sharp. Steady. Like steel coming out of fire. So I didn't confront them. Not yet. I walked quietly back to my car, past all the smiling strangers, my heels echoing like a warning. I didn't look back. Not once. But inside me, something had shifted for good. This wasn't going to end with silence. No. I would find the right moment, the perfect moment. Because some betrayals don't just break your heart. They build your resolve. The first morning after the wedding, I didn't cry. I didn't scream into a pillow or call a friend or replay everything that happened. I just sat still. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, my mind was crystal clear. Pain has a strange way of burning off the fog. It sharpens you. And I was sharp now. Clear, cold, and terrifyingly calm. Daniel had lied to me, used me. Luna had trusted me, unknowingly betrayed by the man she loved. I could have walked away. But something in me had snapped into place. No more wondering. No more waiting. I wanted the truth, and I wanted justice. I started with small things, innocent things. His full name, his company, his connections online. Luna had posted pictures of their engagement party, their new apartment, even his promotion. It was all there, out in the open, breadcrumbs waiting to be followed. I created a new profile. Nothing dramatic, just a fake name, a believable face, a carefully crafted background. Someone who wouldn't raise suspicion. And then I started to circle in. Joining the same social groups, following the same accounts, liking a post here, commenting there. Slowly, quietly, slipping closer to the heart of their world. I told myself it wasn't revenge. It was truth-gathering, research, clarity. But deep down, I knew what this was. I wanted to find the crack in their perfect little story. The lie behind the lie. And it didn't take long. One night, I found him, Daniel, in a picture that wasn't posted by Luna, but by a woman I didn't recognize. Her hand was on his chest, his smile, familiar, too familiar, and the caption? Late nights, worth it. My heart didn't race. It didn't even flinch. I just stared at it, a slow smile forming on my lips. So this was who he really was. I zoomed in on the photo, looked at the time it was posted, matched it to a night he said he was working late, one of many. And that was all I needed. That little slip. That glimpse into who he was when no one was watching. From there, it unraveled quickly. Messages, tags, comments half deleted. I dug deeper, and the truth poured out like dirty water. This woman wasn't the only one. There were others. Casual flings, overlapping timelines. My stomach churned, but I didn't look away. I cataloged everything, screenshots, locations, usernames. I was building a case, and with every click, the fire inside me burned cleaner. But I wasn't careless. I knew I couldn't just confront him outright. Not yet. I needed the story to land in the exact right place, at the exact right time. So I watched. I waited. I started getting closer to Luna too. Under my new identity, I messaged her about wedding venues, about love, about the chaos of planning. She responded warmly, just as open-hearted as I remembered. It gutted me, but I kept going, because she deserved to know. And I needed to be the one to deliver it. Not for cruelty, for control, for closure. There was power in becoming invisible. In watching from the sidelines as they laughed, posted, pretended, I wasn't that heartbroken girl anymore. I was studying them, preparing, planning. I'd see them at a charity dinner the following month, an event Luna had casually mentioned, where Daniel would be recognized for his entrepreneurial excellence. The irony made me laugh out loud. That would be the moment. That would be my stage. But before I pulled the curtain back, I needed one final piece. Something undeniable. Something no one could talk their way out of. I found it 2 nights later, a series of private messages tucked away on a dating app he hadn't even bothered to hide well. His profile picture was different, but the arrogance was unmistakable. Same flirty lines, same overconfident tone, same promises he once whispered to me. He had matched with 3 women in the same week he proposed to Luna. The screenshots felt like evidence in a trial, and I treated them like gold, organized, time-stamped, annotated. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a pattern, a lifestyle, and I had it all in my hands. Still, I needed a delivery method, one that would pierce through the glamour, the praise, the polished smiles. Something public, but elegant. Luna didn't deserve a scene. She deserved the truth. And he deserved the collapse. So I called in a favor from an old friend in event planning. She slipped my name onto the guest list for the charity dinner. No questions asked. I had the dress. I had the composure. I had the fire. And most importantly, I had the truth, ready to be unveiled like a final act. As I zipped up the folder and backed up every file, a strange calm settled over me. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't second-guessing. I felt free. Like the version of myself I'd lost somewhere along the way had finally come home. I wasn't doing this to hurt them. I was doing it to reclaim myself, to take back every piece of me that had been bent, buried, or broken in silence. And when the moment came, I wouldn't tremble. I would shine. The night of the event, the city glittered like it knew something was coming. I arrived early, stepping out of the car with a stillness that didn't feel like me. But maybe this was me now. Not the girl who waited for answers. Not the woman who begged for crumbs of love. I wore a sleek black dress that hugged me like armor, hair swept back, eyes lined with purpose. Every inch of me was composed, radiant, unbothered. And when I walked into that ballroom, I didn't shrink. I owned the space. They were already there, Daniel and Luna, floating through the crowd, hand in hand, all smiles and whispered jokes. He looked like every bit the charming fraud I now knew him to be. She looked beautiful, glowing in that way only women in love can. And yet, as I watched them, I didn't feel rage anymore. Just clarity. Like I was watching a film I already knew the ending to. The music swelled, glasses clinked, cameras flashed, and then Daniel was called to the stage. Perfect timing. All eyes on him. I moved forward slowly, deliberately. The envelope in my hand felt light, but it carried weight. Proof. Truth. Liberation. I waited until the applause softened, until his smug voice filled the room with thanks and fake humility. Then, I approached, calm, quiet. I didn't shout. I didn't make a scene. I simply stepped into his line of vision and watched the blood drain from his face. His mouth opened slightly, as if he might say my name, but no sound came out. For a second, time seemed to stutter. Then I handed him the envelope. He stared at it like it might explode. "You forgot something," I said softly, just loud enough for the mic to catch it. The crowd shifted, murmurs rippling like a rising tide. I turned to the audience, to Luna, whose smile had begun to falter. She looked confused, worried. I hated that part, but it was time. "While you were choosing wedding dresses," I said, eyes on Luna now, voice steady as glass, "I was sleeping with your fiancé." A collective gasp broke the room open. Daniel tried to speak, to step forward, but I raised a hand. "Don't," I warned. "It only makes it worse." Someone opened the envelope, maybe one of his colleagues, and suddenly the whispers became waves. Screenshots, DMs, photos, timeline receipts. Everything laid bare. The truth, undeniable. Ugly and echoing across crystal and velvet. Luna just stared at me, and I stared back. No malice, no apology. Just the painful, simple truth between us. Her eyes glossed over, and for a moment I saw the heartbreak land. Not the betrayal from me, that came later, but the realization of him, of what she married. That's when I stepped back. I had done what I came to do. I didn't need to watch the collapse. That wasn't the point. The point was, I had finally stopped letting other people write my ending. I walked out without looking back. Past the gasps, the stares, the unraveling. My heels clicked softly against the marble floor, steady and sure. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was moving toward something, not away, not running, not hiding. I stepped into the night air, cool and sharp, and let it fill my lungs. The city hummed around me, cars passing, laughter spilling from restaurant patios, life going on. And so would I. Revenge hadn't healed everything. It hadn't erased the nights I cried myself to sleep or the trust that had been shattered in layers. But it gave me something I didn't know I needed. Closure. A full stop. A final breath in a story that had taken too much from me. I didn't need Daniel to suffer. I didn't need Luna's forgiveness. What I needed was to free myself from it all. And in that moment, I did. As I walked down the street, wind teasing the edge of my coat, I thought about the woman I used to be. The one who waited for love to arrive fully formed, who held her breath every time a man gave half of himself and called it everything. She was gone now, and in her place stood someone whole, someone awake. Someone who knew that healing wasn't about pretending it didn't hurt. It was about choosing to rise anyway.